Welcome back to the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Weight Room. We have a great guest today, Tiffany Chandler. She's an IFBB Fitness Pro. We're going to be talking about her experience in the sport of bodybuilding, getting back into the sport here in 2023, and actually competing at the Arnold here in just a few weeks. So stay tuned for a great episode. Here we go.
So 2011, I was working in Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm obviously from Alabama, and I had not lived out of the state at that point, and wanted to make some girlfriends, and ended up at the gym there, and was a former gymnast and cheerleader, and met some girls that were competing in the bodybuilding industry back in 2011, and jumped on that train with them and made me some good friends. And the next thing you know, I was pro, winning Team Universe back in 2011. And all of that happened within about 6 weeks. So it was pretty fast. I did a regular season show, and then I did a national qualifier, and then I went to Team Universe just for the experience and ended up winning. So from the time of getting a suit and putting choreography together for a routine and music and all of that, it was literally within, that 6 week, 8 week, 2 month time frame. And after that, I fell in love with it. So I've been doing it for quite a while now. I've had some success with it. It's actually been a huge part of my life and helped me through several different areas that we can talk about throughout the podcast. But the most recent, obviously, is my husband and I decided that we were going to grow our family. So I got pregnant in 2021, and we had a beautiful little girl, and that's my second child. And just recently got the invitation back to the Arnold in Ohio coming up in March.
That's pretty awesome to, have that time off. And I feel like having time away from something, it makes you appreciate kind of the experience, what it was, and it can reinstill that fire. Did you feel like it you had that almost like missing competition, missing like the process of going through all those things?
Yes. I always have. 2014, I got injured and hurt my knee, and we decided at that point we were going to try for our first child. So in 2015, I was pregnant and had her early 2016, and I missed the process then and couldn't wait to get back on stage, and didn't know if that would even be possible or not, because at that point a lot of women were not doing that. They were playing out their career through fitness or the bodybuilding industry, and then kind of sort of retiring to start a family. And I wanted to be able to come back after that. So both times that I've through my pregnancy and giving birth, I've been anxious to start the process again. And so yes, it does. That fire inside grows, and it grows bigger each time.
Did you find it was more of a challenge for you to be away from it whenever it was a choice, this last time versus getting injured, or like which one do you feel like was more challenging?
I think the first one was more challenging just because I was taken out with an injury that was not by choice. But it did offer us the opportunity to start talking about creating a family, which God has perfect timing in everything. And that was huge in my life. So our firstborn is actually 7 today. So today's her 7th birthday. I can't believe it's been that long, but this go around, some of the competitions were getting shuffled around. I did the Olympia in 2020, and then I knew Arnold was getting pushed back and shows were getting shuffled, and everybody was trying to figure out how in the world they were going to make everything work for 2021. So that was completely my choice. And it was not as, I didn't feel like I was missing out because I made that decision.
Going back in time a little bit, when you first got into bodybuilding, tell us a little bit about that. Like, was there any information or knowledge that you had going into it, any expectations you had set? Like, what was it like just, okay, I'm going to start this thing, and then going forward from there?
That's a very good question. I was actually searching for something to continue a little bit of what I had been doing my entire life, which was gymnastics, cheerleading, dancing. And I had done that all the way through my college career. And began working and wanted to have something to strive for, not just have to go to the gym to go to the gym. And I do enjoy working out, but the competitive part of it, the adrenaline rush, was huge for me. And so back, I guess, in 2011, YouTube was coming out, and I Googled fitness competitions. And I actually came across Tangi Johnson, who is a big name in our sport. She's retired now, but I flew out to see her for a couple of days. And I knew also in the back of my brain that I had been through some disordered eating habits and some body dysmorphia previously in my life. And it was something that I struggled with. And I felt like this industry could help me maintain control of that as long as I did it the right way.
Was there anybody saying like, hey, this might not be the best thing for you?
At that time, no. I'm sure my mom and my husband at that point might have had that fear in the back of their minds, and then maybe would have brought it to the forefront if they would have noticed or seen anything. But I was very vocal from the get-go about what I was doing and what I was trying, and understanding that it's a science, and that, my coach and I would both have to learn my body and what worked best. And so no, but once I've opened up about some of that, there are people that, will come back and go, oh, well, bodybuilding took me down a dark path. It really messed up my eating. I spiraled into a disordered habit. And for me, I have not walked in their shoes. I've only walked in my own, and bodybuilding's been a positive effect for me through dealing with those issues earlier on in life.
And do you think it's just different for everybody, or do you think that like bodybuilding done, there's so many different ways to it, but done the right way or done one of the right ways, it's not necessarily going to lead to some of those issues, but whenever you maybe don't go in with the best information or have a coach who knows like how to control all these variables as well, that it is more likely to lead to those things?
I do. I think if you go into it alone, if you've not really done your research, or if you go in with a coach that might not be knowledgeable in that sense. And I still talk about this every day. And when I drive to Birmingham, my coach is not here. He's an hour from me now. We moved, and so we're actually closer to each other. But I tell the team all the time, communicate, communicate, communicate. And that's everything. What you're eating, how you're feeling, what your daily schedule is like. There's so much more to it. And communication to me is that number one key of making sure that if you're in this industry, that you're communicating with your coach, and that you're also communicating with yourself so that you're headed down the right path. So I think that if you've got the correct information, and you've got someone that's knowledgeable and has their certifications and does their research and has been doing this for a while, you're in good hands. I do believe that. And just to communicate, relationships are huge, and you've got to be able to talk to each other. And your coach, or, even yourself, if you're withholding that information from yourself or your coach, then you're not doing yourself any favors. And communication is key.
I feel like sometimes too, it's hard to know at the beginning. I think it takes some time to learn, like, you don't think that this thing has anything to do with this other thing. So you might not give that information away to a coach. I'm not going to worry them with that or whatever. How long did it take for you to almost realize that, let me just tell them everything and then they can decide what's important?
When I started with Greg out of Team Elite in Birmingham, Alabama, I knew him. We'd known each other for a while. I had guest performed for him in 2012. And I had two coaches prior to that, great coaches, but did not connect with me on a personal level. And I remember calling him, I would like to potentially be a part of your team, but if you have a moment, just sit here and listen. And I'm going to tell you everything I got. And when I felt like some of that had lifted off of my shoulders, and he told me everything he had, it just clicked. And so that's everything. And I tell people all the time, you can't be ashamed, or you can't, you don't think something's important, but it's weighing on you, tell it. write it down. You know, if you feel like you're going to forget about it, send it in a text or an email or whatnot. Your coach, even if they don't respond immediately, they're going to see it and they'll get back to you, and that's their job. And so the more information you can provide, the better, even if it seems silly.
It's almost hard to grasp, especially kind of at the beginning of whether it's fitness or bodybuilding or both, how everything is kind of like interrelated, really, you know, as the athlete too, to know and to appreciate like taking the time to do that, because it's so easy to like, I feel like check in and just be like, okay, you know, doing great. Here's the pictures, get on to the next thing. So just taking the time to really utilize that person's, that coach's knowledge and experience to the best that you can do as well.
No doubt, no doubt. And that's, you know, you don't want to go through the motions. You know, you've really got to do it and do it right. And I mean, even like with my life now, I'll tell Greg, I've had 3 knee surgeries on my left knee. All of them were ACLs. The last 2 were actually from, I had the patella tendon graft first, and then they took from my left hamstring. And then the 3rd surgery they took from my right hamstring. So both legs have been operated on a little bit. So my hamstrings are a weak area. My knee, I'm 36 years old. My knee's been through a lot. You know, there's certain exercises where I'm like, look, we got to find an alternative, you know, or can I do that one in moderation? Or, you know, I got things going on with the kids. Okay, well, sleep is important. My 14-month was up all night because she's teething. So I was up all night with her. You know, I don't think that it's safe for me to practice my gymnastic skills today because we don't want to provide an injury. So, I mean, even stuff like that. And that's where I am in life. And I tell it all because at the end of the day, my body is very important to me because I want to be able to be around for a long time with my kids and do things with them. So I just communicate everything with him, and some of that stuff, like what you're saying, it's different for everybody. So, certain leg exercises are difficult for me, and sometimes the recovery process on my legs is a little bit different, and that also leads in fitness part of it. Everybody's different, but communicating that, and your coach should be able to provide you different exercises or alternatives for whether that's food or training.
Don't be afraid to ask why. Don't feel like you're pestering someone. You know, really, it's your health, it's your opportunity. So take full advantage of that opportunity.
You're exactly right. And I have actually told some people before, if your coach gets irritated with you for asking questions, then that's a red flag. You know, if they feel like they can't give you an educated answer or explain to you why, on certain things, then maybe it is time to move on. You just got to find somebody that's willing to work with you and then hear you out, you know, because you want to have a good relationship with your coach as well, so that you don't have that fear of going, oh, I'm going to disappoint, or, oh, I'm going to upset, or, oh, I'm going to get, you know, lashed out at or scolded for what I did. Look, we're adults. We all have life going on. And this is not, I hate to say it that way, but bodybuilding is not the end all be all. I mean, at least not for me. I work full time. I have 2 kids. My husband is an educator and a coach. So we're around our youth all the time, and we want to and strive to be the best role models that we possibly can be for them, and allowing them to kind of come into our home and watch how we navigate life is important. And communication and things like that are huge. And I think our society needs that today.
Obviously you've competed in some really high level events, and certainly we're going to get into those here in just a minute. But at what point did you realize, or at what point did that become almost like a reality, or even just an expectation of like, this is what I want to achieve these things and I want to compete in these events versus I just want to compete?
Right. I like that question a lot. It was just competing for me and me wanting to, you know, possibly place or get in that top 3 or potentially win a show for years up until I had my first baby. It was a little bit more selfish for me back then, which and I'm very Christian oriented, and I believe the Lord had put the sport in my life for several things. I had a family member that I was extremely close with that had kind of gone in and out of several different facilities for alcohol, and just something that I thought I could fix for him at that point. This was my dad. It's actually been something that's been very difficult to talk about for years. And I think I just kind of sort of dove into bodybuilding. That happened in 2012. And so I'd been in it for a year, and I dove in to just kind of have an escape, and really just was competing for myself, and thought, okay, well, I can go win. This is why I'm doing it. I've always been a competitor. I was a college gymnast, so I've won a lot of competitions. I can do this. And I had placed high in a couple of things up until that point, and I had gotten on the Arnold International circuit, and had gone to Brazil right before I got injured. And then after I came back from having my baby, it turned into, I'm now competing for my health, for my family, for the people I work with, because it makes me a better me all the way around, so that I can be better for them. And when that set in late 2016, it was crazy how the opportunities and the placings, and I got better. I mean, I literally just got better, and it wasn't just one focus. It was literally of, how do I make myself better so that I can be a better wife? How can I make myself better so that I can be a better mom, and have more patience, and spend more time, and be more in tune in the moment? And it was rewarding after that point, and so you get to Arnold invites, we're going to South Africa, and then we're placing third at the Arnold, right behind Rael Graber and Whitney Jones. I mean, top names in the business. And then, oh my goodness, we win Puerto Rico, and all of a sudden we're qualified for the Olympia, and we're just going to go to the Olympia and show out and have a good time and experience it. And I'm in the last call out for physiques, and then I have a killer routine, and the next thing you know, I'm placing top 5, my first Olympia ever. And it was all because of the mindset. And that's just, I guess, the only way I can explain it, was because I was really competing so that I could be better back at home, back here where family is and work is, and the kids are that we're around on a daily basis. And I've kept that mindset, and I'm ready for 2023.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20 online at mybapparel.com. If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below. So is it like, being able to pull from a deeper place? You feel like, whenever that challenge does arise, you have more than just yourself. It's like, hey, I'm doing it for these other reasons.
Yes, I think that's a very great way to explain it. It is deeper, and it's all from the heart, and it's all from the soul. And some of that too went from trying to figure out what the judges wanted, and realizing that you're there as the entertainer. People are paying to come in and watch you guys perform. And it turned to the crowd and everybody that knows me back home, what they see of me, and not necessarily their expectations of me, but how the performance then comes for them. It comes for everybody else. I hope the judges like it. I think if the crowd likes it, then the judges would like it. But I immediately turned into, hey, I know I'm the entertainer, and I'm going to go entertain. That's what I'm there to do. I want to be able to take the crowd away from whatever they're dealing with in 2 minutes of their life, because you get millions of people out there in the crowd, and you don't know what they're going through. Everybody right now, the world is moving so fast. There's so much going on. Everybody's dealing with something. If I can steal them away for 2 minutes and just bring them into my world with my performance, then that's what I want to do. I want everybody to experience that with me, because it is deep. It's from my heart and soul.
So you mentioned like competing in these foreign countries and places around the world that a lot of people never go and never experience, like that location, that geography, that culture. What was that like for you, getting to see and experience these different places?
It was a lot of fun. And I tell people all the time now that bodybuilding has opened up the doors for me to be able to travel around the world. And I don't feel like if we're not getting to travel, then we're not as educated as we should be. We need to see other parts of the world. We need to see other cultures, because when you come back to the United States, you value what you have here. And you live life a little differently, and having friends across the world now, especially with where the times have been through COVID and things of that nature. You've either got people that have it all and all the riches in the world and can do what they need, and then you have the slums. There's no in between, and some of that stuff will pull at your heartstrings, with what you have here, which is interesting, because we try to give. We want to give as much as we possibly can, to our local community and whoever may need it here. So traveling has helped open my eyes and educated me on different cultures and different things around the world. And I'm thankful for bodybuilding for that, because that's allowed me the opportunity.
What is it like to also compete while having, because that's like another obstacle, right? That's another challenge is you hear about people competing within the United States, having to travel, maybe even across the United States, but traveling across the world and competing, what does that add to it?
Oh, that's wild. Because once you get there, your coach is probably on a completely different time zone. So I was just grateful that my coach would be up in the middle of the night when it was daytime for me, trying to make sure that we were checking in and moving and shaking in the right direction before the competition. But having to get settled on a time zone there and to respect their rules and regulations and figure out where grocery stores were, or if there were any communication barriers, it adds to a lot. So it's funny, because the competitors that we have in fitness, when they come into the States and they're at shows, especially if I'm around, I've always tried to just help, because I've gotten to walk in their shoes just a little bit outside of the United States. And it can be stressful, and when you're at a competition, you're wanting to have fun, you're wanting to enjoy it. All your hard work should pay off. And you definitely don't want those cortisol levels rising, just because you're no longer in your country.
Right. And what's your favorite place that you've competed in?
I would say when we went to South Africa, we bonded, the whole fitness group. We had a blast. The flight over there was, I can't remember how long it was, but we were doing handstands on the plane. We went to a kind of like a zoo there. It was more of like a lion, what would you call it? Like a lion showcase. And we got to pet the lions, and everybody was just having a blast. It was so funny. We were meeting kids. We were doing handstands and push-ups with the kids and with the workers at the zoo. And we still talk about it. We just getting to experience that. I will say, when I went to Brazil, that was the first time that I had ever really felt like we were outside. When we got off the plane, we had our own bodyguards, and at that point in time, this was back, I think, in like 2014. They were walking around with like AKs on the street, and we were pretty much told that we could be taken, for, I guess, human trafficking. A lot of us were blonde, blue eyes, and that we were told not to leave the hotel without having some form of security with us. And so that was the first time I had ever kind of sort of felt, uneasy, and just making sure that I was aware of my surroundings, that we were in a country where they're just walking around, riding around with these big guns everywhere, and that you could be a target for them just because of the way you looked.
Yeah, that's crazy. Kind of goes back to, like, you were talking about, that perspective and understanding like what a real issue is, like, okay, I might be dealing with this certain thing on this day, whether it's with my job or with a kid or with whatever. And it could be a tough thing, but then it takes you back like, oh my gosh, I remember when, like, I was in threat of being kidnapped. And now this makes that makes that like look, or this current situation feel so much more manageable and so much more like it brings it more into perspective of what it really is.
It does. You're able to find the silver lining on things a little bit easier, and you're able to twist it to a positive thing a little bit better. You're able to kind of, redo your mindset. And I think that's huge. I think that's huge in bodybuilding in general. If everybody got the opportunity to travel, I think that would be amazing, because it's the simple daily tasks of life, whether you have kids or you work full-time, family, whatever it may be. We all need to be able to have control of our brains and rewire ourselves, because we're in control of our attitudes. And that's something I try to tell myself on a daily basis, that, whatever problem solving we have going on here, I've seen a few other things that were a lot worse, or could be a lot scarier. I can do this. Just take a deep breath, collect your thoughts, and let's go. And I tell myself that a lot.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. Gaining that perspective and gaining that experience, it's so valuable, to see like what the rest of the world is like, but moving to kind of like gaining a little bit of perspective and experience on the strictly the competing side. When you reach the Olympia stage and you realize like, I'm amongst, the best of the best here, what do you feel like you learned from that experience as well as from the people around you?
I had to soak that all in. I guess up until that point of getting there, I had not really put myself in that category of being one of the best. And when you've got friends like Rael Graber, Michelle Blank, Whitney Jones, that have all been high up on that, even I remember with Oksana Grishina, when I first got into it, just telling me how fabulous, she thought I was. And I never let that soak in. And then when I really started to allow it to click and I got to that first Olympia, I was like, you can be proud of yourself. You are on this level. I've always been a very humble individual. I like to talk, but at competitions and things like that, I have a good time with the girls, but when we get backstage for competition, I do get a little quiet. It's just kind of the way I manage my adrenaline or any anxiety that might be coming up for the performance. But now that I do believe that I'm on that level with these women, and they're my friends, and they've been telling me this for years. And sometimes I'm just like, my goodness, why didn't I listen back before? Why didn't I tell myself, oh, she didn't believe it. And it just took me a few years to really believe that. And then Becca Sizemore, who was my roommate when we were in South Africa, just really embedded it into my brain to believe in myself. And I didn't realize that I wasn't believing in myself before all of that. And I just, I'm Tiff, and I don't know what people think of all of that. I'm a little bit more fun, nice. I try to help everybody. And then all of a sudden it was just like, bam, you're a big name. No, I'm not the one signing autographs and taking pictures. And me, you're talking to me, so it's fun. It's humbling. It's exciting. But at the end of the day, I'm still same old me, and I'm doing it for the same reasons.
So most people will never get the experience of competing at the Olympia or the Arnold or something like that. How do you, stay focused in that environment, and how, just for people listening that will never be there, how they can kind of take what you're saying and relay it to just a regional show or a national show, and staying focused, like not having that breakdown, or just keeping it kind of trying to stay even kill, even, before a show? Like, how do you do that on the biggest of events?
I think once you get there, the hard work is done and you've got to find a way to have fun. You wouldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it and if you didn't love it. And that's what you really have to focus on when you get there. The size of the stage I've never really thought about it that way, just because I do enjoy the performance. And I will say, I'm glad that the lights are on us, because you can't necessarily see all of the faces out in the crowd. But whether it's a local show or a national show or one of the biggest stages, you still have to get there and just get off the plane, get out of your vehicle, check into the hotel and take a deep breath and goes, hey, I'm here. The hard work is done, and then you take that breath. You have your weekend planned out. You know what you've got to do. You know what you've got to eat. You've got your itinerary of when you have to check in. I enjoy that. So I just have to control it before I go. And then when I get out there, I can let it all out. Because I always think it adds to the routine. So I know there's some people out there that are that way. And then some people that really have to figure out how to control the adrenaline. So I can't speak for those. I definitely pray for you, but I would hope that everybody could find how I use mine, because once I hit the stage, I'm like, let's go, baby. Let it all out.
So explain a little bit what it was like to be selected for not just, I guess, this year's Arnold in particular, but just any, really, because at the end of the day, it's a selection, and like it's in your hands as far as like your past, but you don't have as much power in that as a typical show.
No, you don't. It's always been very nerve-wracking, and I've pretty much applied for the Arnold every year that I have been in the IFBB, and getting selected in 2014 to go to Brazil was my first Arnold, and I got in because I was an alternate, and one of our girls had gotten injured, and I had 7 weeks to get ready, and I said yes, I will be there. I cried. I'm such an emotional person, and I have cried every Arnold USA, every Arnold, the invite to Australia, the invite to South Africa, all of them. I think I've cried just because it's happy tears, because you have no control over it. It is not a regular pro show where you can go and win and then you qualify for the Olympia. You literally put in your competition history. You write a letter on why you should think you should be selected or why you think you would represent the Arnold Classic. And then you've got people that are going to sit around a conference table and make that decision for you. So I'm honored by it, extremely honored by it, because when you're taking each division, and I don't know, but I think fitness had maybe between 40 and 50 applicants this year. And for your name to come up, and for my name to come up after being out for 2 years, is huge. And that's humbling. And that is a win already in its own, because I'm extremely grateful and honored that they think that highly of me, and that I can come back after baby number 2 and that I can represent what they're looking for on stage at the Arnold. And be one of 10 women is something that you can only dream of, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm not going to disappoint either.
So having experience competing at both the Olympia and the Arnold, and obviously both major events, what are some of the differences competing at the Arnold versus competing at the Olympia?
Competing at the Arnold, obviously, Arnold comes into your, when we have our athlete meeting, with the Arnold always being in Columbus, I've become a lot more familiar with that. It's a little bit more comforting getting there, knowing the hotel, knowing the expediting staff, knowing the people that pick you up from the airport, that will run and get you food, that get you hotel to backstage. They're both huge stages. I will say, being able to walk through everybody that you walk through for the Arnold is pretty cool, because when you walk, the prejudging is in the expo. And so they pretty much walk you down a red carpet and everybody lines up to watch you come by, and you have your security and everybody leading the way. So that's super, super cool. I think when we came in for the Olympia, a lot of it is more backstage through hallways. So you don't really see a whole lot of people prior to the competition. So those are two completely different things, but the similarity of both of them, the size and the largeness of the stage and the amount of effects they have now between the lights and the sound, the bigger competitions can be a lot more fun.
Kind of moving specifically to like your preparation, your training, things like that. How do you maintain that athleticism?
Yeah, so I think our training is completely different from some of the other categories, just because we have to implement HIIT workouts, the high intensity interval trainings. And what we do is we break those in with some of our skill, a straddle jump for 10 reps, or I might do back handsprings for 10 reps, where somebody might do 20 push-ups. We're implementing, hinge push-ups or fly push-ups or jack push-ups or whatever it may be, so that you're still getting your heart rate up, but you're also getting numbers in for the skills that you need for your routines. Cardio for me as well is a little bit different, because I have to do a lot more pounding on my body with the routine, because you want to make sure that you're conditioned and your endurance level is where that it should be. So whereas earlier in prep, we might be doing a little bit more, stair stepper, running on a treadmill, or fast-paced elliptical work. Towards the end, it becomes more seated bike for me at a steady state, because I'm having to run my routine so much. And so that's pounding on my joints and my ligaments and things of that nature. So I do think training is a little bit different. And then as the closer we get to the show, as far as like lifting, your individual lifts, things shift for me, because I need more days to train routine, which sometimes I think is the reason why us fitness girls, even though we pose like figure, that's why our physiques are really different from each other, because of the amount of handstands and push-ups and flips and jumps and things that we're doing versus just training that specific body part.
From a mental aspect, do you do anything, like have any mental techniques that you do, whether that's within training or even on show day, like visualization or anything like that?
Yes. So I visualize every day. And that's honestly, I do that whether I'm in competition prep or not. I do that with my daily activities. It kind of sort of helps me see where I'm going through the day and what I have coming up, because our days do get so busy. So I don't want to get anxious. And that's something I've really been trying to work on, especially this last year, just with anxiety and having baby number 2 and learning how to live life with 2 kids. So visualization is huge. And even like now that I have my music and my choreography, when I take Stallings and Spidey to school in the morning, we listen to my music in the car. And so like Stallings is learning the moves that I have in certain parts, and so I'm going through it in my brain. But especially the week of the show, those visualizations come before I train the routine, after I train the routine, and then I'll break the routine down into pieces that I've already visualized in my head, and I visualize them perfectly. And if I cannot see it perfectly, I will do it again until I know that I'm doing that specific skill, that specific section as perfect as I possibly can. And breathing techniques with that too, because goodness gracious, if all of us are performing between 1:45 and 2 minutes and doing the tricks that we do and being depleted, we all need to learn how to breathe. So breathing techniques are important.
As far as recovery or just maintenance to keep yourself out there and able to, to practice your routine and to make sure you can do it on show day.
I visit the chiropractor weekly. I have a hip and a low back issue that he takes care of for me. I also go to physical therapy once a week. We are currently doing cupping, dry needling, and grafting, stretching and strengthening exercises at physical therapy. And then I have a massage therapist, and the 3 of them also know what everybody else is doing, working on me wise. And that just goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of communication. I roll out every night, have a Therago, and then I make sure that I'm stretching. I'm not the most flexible human being. And as I get older, it's getting more difficult. And then obviously, we all know as you put on size with muscle, flexibility is important to try and maintain. So that's something additional that I do at home. Having them on my team with me is also just that additional accountability. I do a very good job of holding myself accountable, but as far as making sure that I'm doing my exercises correctly and then I'm coming back to their office the next week and they're evaluating my body, have I done everything that I could to make sure that I'm helping them help me? So accountability is another one.
Looking forward to the Arnold this year, and it's just in a few months, a few short months now. Really, we're almost coming to the end of January. It's hard to believe, but what are you looking to really optimize in the next however many weeks we have? I'm sure you know how many weeks there are until it, but what are you looking to optimize in the next upcoming weeks?
Yeah, so we're inside 6 weeks now. And what I need to optimize is making sure that I maintain the muscle mass that I have without eating into it as we bring the body into the correct conditioning. I lost probably about 12 pounds of what I would call good muscle during my pregnancy. And I've not had the opportunity to really put that size back on, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I'm symmetrical from top to bottom and front to back right now. We just want to make sure that I don't eat into that muscle as we're bringing the body into the correct conditioning that we need for the physique round. And then really just optimizing my skills training and my transitions in and out in my routines. I don't have to have high numbers of full sets of routines, but more high numbers in like half sets. So I'll break my routine into 2 parts. And that will really help take some of the pounding off of my joints so that I'm fresh and ready to go inside this next 6 weeks.
So does that look like, as far as prep goes, trying to not eat into that muscle mass, does that look like a softer prep as far as like cardio goes? Like, how do you look to do that?
Yeah, cardio is very minimal right now. My metabolism is moving and shaking, and we're leaning out. My coach says that we're right on target for what we have, and so cardio is very, very, very minimal right now. I'm lifting heavy. I'm lifting as heavy as I can. We are doing some high repetitions, obviously, to help bring in the shape that we're looking for. I'll listen to him when he tells me to change something around. We typically do rotate carbs and go into some low carb days, and that may not be necessary until we're in that 2 weeks time frame, and that's inside that 14 days. And so right now we're eating as much as possible and lifting as heavy as we can with lots of reps and getting my routine practice in. So cardio is kind of minimal at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's going to be here before you know it. I'm really looking forward to the Arnold and being able to experience that, being able to kind of take that environment and that energy in, as well as try to hit up some other shows this year. It's been really cool getting into kind of the bodybuilding scene this last probably about 9 months now within the podcast. So I really look forward to, seeing you hopefully performing at the Arnold.
Yeah, I'm super excited that you get to go. I'm glad that we have you on board, especially with the podcast and getting to come and then maybe getting to see some other shows this year. That would be awesome.
For sure. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. It was cool getting to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as well.